In the world of youth sports, success is so often measured in trophies by making the team, increased playing time, and putting up high scores. But beyond the medals lies something far more important: the mental health of our young athletes. As pressure rises, so do the challenges they face, both on and off the field. This episode delves into the heart of what truly matters: balance, support, and resilience. From fostering positive coaching environments to encouraging open conversations about feelings. We'll uncover how to build a foundation where every young athlete thrives, not just physically, but emotionally too. Because in youth sports, it's not just about winning. It's about growing stronger.
Mental health is a big deal now, of course. And we're all dealing with something.
Yep.
Everybody's struggling in some kind of way with something. Long gone are the days where it's only technical skill development. The best coaches are using the 2 hours or 90 minutes of practice to teach technical skills, where to hold your body, the shape you want to put a body in to be repeated success or have repeated success. And what are the mental skills? They're quite clear. Teach the kids how to breathe. I don't know if you're doing this yet, but teach them before or at the middle or at the end of practice. Just get 10 breaths in, 10 long breaths. Hey, everyone, great practice. We're going to shut her down just a little bit. 3 deep breaths. We're going to do it as a team. Then you move 3 to 6, and then you move 6 to 9, right? And just some deep breathing, because what happens game time for most people is they tighten up.
Yeah, it gets anxious.
And so if we're not teaching how to be calm and only technical skills, we're running them right into a choke point.
Yeah.
Right? There is no reason why a kid should be anxious or nervous unless anxiety and sits underneath the surface, or we haven't taught them the skills. And the more internal work you do and I do, the more we have to give benevolently to others. If I'm anxious, quick to frustration, easy to, get pissed off about something, that's what I'm giving to people. You're not good enough. That's not good enough. What are we doing here? As opposed to, oh, I see you. Okay, this is great information. If I am what's called dispositionally optimistic, if I am an optimistic person, I get to see through the lenses of my life opportunities as opposed to all the things that could go wrong. That's a pessimistic outlook. So I need to work to feed my optimism, to build that skill so that I can find the good in the opportunities, even when it's difficult to do so. So mental health is a real thing, and coaches play a significant role in supporting or debilitating a child's sense of self.
And again, a lot of that stuff that you're mentioning, easier said than done, right? Like, you get so caught up in the emotion of the game and the energy of the moment, and you're living and dying with it. To be able to take a step back and do that is a learned skill. Well, and you have to be very conscious of it.
I love that you just called the most important phrase out, which is that the psychological skills are learned.
Yep.
You mastered them.
No, I have not mastered them.
Well, you did it in the NFL. You knew how to play calm in just the right way.
Yeah.
Your calm was.
It was easier for me to play.
Yeah.
Than because I was in control. Coaching and conceding that control, especially to young kids, where that is harder than when you're doing it yourself.
Let's do kind of a quick wash of the basic mental skills that, if there's an athlete listening, a parent listening, or a coach listening, that can be folded into game day practice. Breathing is how you develop the skill of being calm. So when your body feels anxious, you got butterflies rolling and they feel like there's a little too much butterflies are fine, no problems. But when you got too much activation, breathing is what settles us down. You can teach that skill. At about the 12th long exhale, so 12 long exhales in a row. I said 3 earlier, then 6, then 9. We're trying to get to 12. You start to send a signal to your brain, hey, there's no saber tooth here. There's no wildebeest. I'm actually in control. And okay, I'm starting to get into that rest, the more relaxed state.
Yep.
That happens around 12. If we don't ask our kids to do it under our direction, they're going to play Xbox, they're going to play PlayStation, they're going to play a game, something else, instead of doing breathing work. Who wants to do breathing work? The other is confidence. That too is a trainable skill. Where does it come from? You know this as good as anybody. It comes from what you say to yourself. So we can teach our kids how to back themselves, how to speak to themselves like they are the greatest coach to themselves. So that self-talk needs to be credible, and it needs to be something that builds you. Something like this. All right, look, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm a grinder. I don't know how this is going to go. I love challenges. Let's go get it. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm a force to be reckoned with. When you back yourself and speak to yourself, you're building confidence. So we just got 2 skills, calmness and confidence. And then a third skill that I think every coach, parent, and athlete would benefit from is before practice, write down 3 goals that are 100% under your control. My son's got a little field journal. And before practice, he doesn't write them down all the time. He now says them out loud to me, or he says them to himself, when I'm not around, who knows? 3 goals that are 100% under his control. And one of them better be I tell him, I say, you got problems coming now. When I talk to your coach, and I'm smiling when I say it, when I talk to your coach and there better be a real good reason why you're not the most effortful kid. There better be a real good reason why you don't have the most intensity, the most effort, the most enthusiasm, like that type of vigor. There better be a real good reason for it, because that's totally under your control. So what I'm saying is 3 goals, 100% in your control. Write them down, see them, and then you have a backstop to measure success from. Those 3 things, breathing, self-talk, and goal setting, are a great mechanism for mental health, a great mechanism for high performance.
That's awesome. That's super helpful. I mean, I'm taking mental notes when I get home. I'm like, all right, I gotta make sure
3 goals. Breathing.
I'm putting this all in my own mental, but our guest for this episode here on You Think is Seth Davis. Seth is a longtime CBS sports writer and studio analyst known for his in-depth basketball coverage. But beyond his sports expertise, Seth is also a passionate advocate for kindness, using his platform as a, quote, kindness evangelist to help inspire positive change both on and off the court. First off, Seth, he shared just mastering the basics, something as simple as breathing. It can make all the difference, especially in these high pressure moments. Learning to control your breath isn't just about staying calm. It's really about creating like a mental anchor that athletes can rely on. When the game gets the most intense, you remain calm. It's really just a simple tool, but it's one that can really shift the focus back to what matters in the heat of the moment. I thought Seth also did a really good job highlighting the importance of learning how to manage your emotions. I think we all, whether it's the coaches, the parents in the crowd, the players on the field or the court, managing emotions, especially in high stressful situations, it can be a challenge for a lot of people. Emotions are very powerful, and they can push us forward, or in a lot of times they can get us off track. So learning to stay level-headed, especially when things don't necessarily go as planned, is another key part of mental fitness. It's about teaching these young athletes how they respond. Can they respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting impulsively? And I think that's a skill that's going to serve them both on and off the field. And finally, we discussed preparation for big moments. The best athletes, they don't just show up. They're mentally rehearsing and preparing for these moments leading up to competition. So that's why when the moments do pop up, they're ready. It doesn't catch them off guard. It's not something they're trying to adjust to in real time. Visualization, self-talk, setting clear intentions, those are just some tools that athletes can use to build the confidence and approach big moments with a purpose. I think today's episode reminds us that mental fitness is just as critical as the physical training. By learning to breathe, managing emotions, and mentally preparing for these big moments, young athletes can gain a powerful edge over their peers.
Seth,
yes,
this is awesome. You are so astute at understanding and following and calling what you're seeing in sport. So you've got a legendary career to be able to tell us what's happening. So we are honored to sit down with you to better understand how you're understanding the game inside the games for, the youth part of sport. So thank you for coming in.
Coming from you and being with Greg, it's an honor to be
Appreciate
here. Trust me. Yeah. Awesome.
So when you think about what you would hope the next generation of either athletes, parents, or coaches could hydrate or install, whatever analogy you'd like to use, for the next generation, who would you speak to first? The athletes, the coaches, or the parents?
Parents. Easy for me. Partly because I am a parent. I'm the father of 3 boys, 20, 18, 14. 2 of them are undergraduates at the University of Texas at Austin. Sorry, hook 'em. And my youngest is a freshman in high school. We were mostly a soccer family for a long time. My youngest is now super into baseball. Tragically, unlike Greg Olsen's kids, they have my DNA. So there's a ceiling, which we always knew. So I had the advantage of a parent A, of knowing that, and also covering sports at an elite level. I'm probably a little bit of a snob in that regard compared to other parents. Like, a lot of parents are looking out there and seeing their kids and projecting that they're going to do ABC, XYZ, that they're elite athletes. And I'm thinking internally, I try not to say this too much out loud, but I'm thinking, I'm around just because of what I do. It's not, I'm not special. Because of what I do, I'm around elite athletes all the time. I know what an elite athlete looks like, and I'm pretty sure your kid is not that. Now, I wouldn't limit anything because there's a million stories, and I know of people, whether they were late bloomers or they just worked their tails off and got there. So I would never set a ceiling on your kid, but at some level, there has to be some level of realism. And also, plus, by the way, he's 9. Right?
That's part of the factor.
So why don't you just watch the game and shut the bleep up, right? Like, I am the quietest parent on the sideline.
This episode of You Think is brought to you by MaxU, a youth sports training program focused on mindset development in young athletes. Instead of reading an ad to you today, I decided to sit down with Alex Auerbach, someone who specializes in mental fitness with his company Momentum Labs, to talk about the importance of MaxU. Alex, thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to diving a little deeper into your journey and just this incredibly important area of mental health and mental acuity and awareness for young athletes. A group that we've talked with at You Think, MaxU. I know that's a group. They have some really cool kind of evaluation messages and how they can kind of help kids work through their identity and their mental health. And talk a little bit about your work with them and what you've done with MaxU, what you've seen from them, what elements of their programs have you guys really connected with?
Yeah, I love what MaxU is doing. I think they are providing a really simple but effective way to help young athletes and parents understand the personality dimensions behind their young athletes and then develop skills related to improve whatever area seems like a limitation or something they just want to get better at, right? And so the MaxU tool is based on the Big 5 personality assessment, which is, a common framework for understanding personality. It's things like openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and what people might call neuroticism, but is really like your tendency to be a little bit more anxious or very deliberate and thoughtful, right? And what they've done is help young athletes understand how their personality plays out in their life context by giving them an animal that they relate to. And it becomes a simple framework to grasp who you are, what makes you special, and what strengths that you have. And I think that strengths-based focus is really powerful. And so we use it the same way I would use any personality assessment with a pro athlete, honestly, or any athlete I work with, right? Is I want to understand you as a person. And personality is just an enduring pattern of behavior, right? So it's not totally fixed, but it's also not the easiest thing to change. And so if we can understand who you are, what motivates you, what makes you tick, we can get a lot more out of a one-on-one coaching experience. And I think that's what makes MaxU so powerful, is whether you're a sports coach or a mindset coach like me, having this data allows you to best understand, okay, what could I do with this athlete to get the most out of them? And then they've got a platform that allows you to teach athletes related skills to whatever element of their personality needs some development or is already a strength and you want to enhance, right? So they can teach things like how to practice mindfulness or learn a little bit more about self-awareness or understand your strengths and how you leverage them in sports or school. I think those characteristics are really, really powerful and allow you to get the most out of the athletes you're working with. And like I said, at the pro level, I don't know if you guys did this in Carolina. I know one thing we did in Toronto was try to understand the players that we had and then how do we work with them individually. And you're talking about this with the team you coach now, right? Every kid is a bit different and you can't just take a one size fits all. And MaxU allows you to sort of get that tailored feedback and treat each kid the way that's going to resonate most for them and then give them the tools they need to develop.
So true. I mean, until you identify the specific individual and find the best way to connect with them, it's hard to be a good coach. It's hard to, because you're not going to earn their trust. They're going to put up their walls. You're not going to really connect with them at a level that, just because it might not be the level that you as the coach might function at, that doesn't matter. What matters is identifying the individual, the athlete. From my experience with MaxU, just going through some of the assessment stuff and the kids getting their animals and whatnot, you take a look at them and all of a sudden there's like this raise in self-awareness and going, oh my God, like I never thought about that, but that does really describe me better than maybe I could have described myself. And then, the practical tools and the follow-up after that, I think is super cool. Here at You Think, we want to bring value to you, the parents, coaches, and the athletes listening in everything that we do. Check out MaxU today and let them know that You Think sent you. Now, back to the episode.
What programs are you seeing from a college or high school or even pro level that are investing in mindfulness as part of the structure of their practice? We can practice technical skills. We can practice mental skills. This would be an easy one to install. What are you seeing out in the world?
Interesting. I am not seeing many, and frankly, enough coaches going the mindfulness meditation route and teaching their athletes the benefits of that, the competitive benefits of that, right? People think about meditation as this amorphous, oh, that's not for me. It's weird.
What's weird is that like Phil Jackson, maybe he got it wrong. Maybe Kobe got it wrong.
Right.
Maybe Jordan got it wrong.
Like LeBron is meditating on
maybe
the bench.
Maybe LeBron's got it wrong. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't be doing this because, they're different than us.
Right.
It's wild to see the greats point to one practice and then it's not yet still trickling down through the power that a coach holds in helping raise our children. This is one of the greatest practices you can do because it's a commitment to become more aware. It's a commitment to become more tuned to the present moment. And when you do that, you have the ability to navigate life just a little bit easier. And science is pointing, by the way, meditation's been around like 2,600 years.
Right.
But science is pointing to...
But it's a fad. It's a new thing.
A minimal, quote unquote, minimal effective dose is around 8 minutes a day to get some real changes. And if you start moving up to 12, up to 20 minutes a day, the science is outrageous about the benefits. I started with my son when he was age 3. Put a little stuffed animal on his stomach right before we go to bed. And I say, all I want you to do for the next handful of moments, I'm going to do it with you, is watch the stuffed animal go up when you breathe and down when you breathe, and just watch it. That's the beginning steps for meditation, And so, but then as he's now in high school ball, he's playing volleyball, they're not teaching that. So I wish they would.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm going to point to you.
I don't see it in any of the team settings either. And you have my brain right now racking, like I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, how do you implement this in a time efficient manner? You have a lot of kids, limited time. So I'm like in my brain saying like, where would you fit this in? Because
for football. Yeah.
Or any of my teams, any of the teams that we're around groups of boys, girls, different seasons, different groups, just trying to think like, okay, what does that format look like to implement those such practices at a team level? Or would most of the feedback be, hey, that's got to be done on an individual level at home. We're not prepared to do that in a team setting.
I'll share where I think the future is going. So 20 years ago, when I would ask coaches, best in the world, elite coaches in the pro ranks, how important is the mental part of the game at this level? What do you think they said? What percentage?
20 years ago?
Yeah.
Not as important as the physical.
Actually, they would say something like 75% at this level. And then I'd say, well, how are you doing it? How are you treating, and cultivating?
You think 20 years ago, people had that idea about mental health? Even
not mental health,
about
the mental part of the game.
So when I think of like mental part of the game, even when I first came into the NFL, so that was 17 years ago. If you ask coaches what mental part of the game, it was knowing your plays, studying your playbook,
film study,
study the game. I think if you ask
performing under pressure,
what's the mental part of the game today to modern coaches in this modern era, they'd say mental health, confidence, ability to overcome adversity, meditate. Like I think there'd be a very different definition.
That I agree. That I 100% agree. And I think to drive the point home is that let's say it's a significant part of doing well, especially game day. Okay. And when I would ask, what are you doing for the training of it? They would say, and they kind of pause. And it was the advanced one had somebody down the block that they could refer people to. Then it moved to somebody in the building that was kind of about. Then it would move to somebody on the bus in the hallways. And now it's more part of training. It's on training blocks. It's in the strength and training room. They'll do mental imagery in the small rooms. Like it's just more and more part of an ecosystem. And it hasn't made that cycle through youth sport yet. It's coming. There will be a time. Right now, it still probably is later. Do it on your own time.
Who's doing it? Who would be administering the practice is what I'm asking.
I want to do it. Can I raise my hand?
Yeah, you want to do it. Yeah.
I want to do it.
This is where the solution is not clear for youth because you're a youth coach and you've got advanced understandings of the value of the mental game, but you might not feel.
I don't know if I'd be comfortable
right.
applying it and leading the practice. I don't know if I feel myself prepared to do that for everyone else's kids.
That's exactly right. So the next iteration of coach development will be to include not only better physical and technical skills, but how to train mental skills. Not psychotherapy, not something where you're getting into all the complicated details, but breathing training, self-talk training, mental imagery, goal setting, and meditation are concrete and quite simple. So who's doing it? The coach or assistant coach that has a connection to it. They've been practicing for a little bit, or there's plenty of sports psychs that are well trained. Bring them in. They would happily do this for free to get exposure to building their young business, to get in front of the parents. And it's 8 minutes at the end of practice. Start with mental imagery. Okay, everyone, we had a great practice. This is awesome. We're going to lay down, sit down, whatever you want to do. Close your eyes. This is right out of John Wooden's playbook as well, Phil Jackson's. Close your eyes. And I'm just going to talk you through a relaxation, 2 minutes of relaxation, and you're going to see your own highlight reel for the remaining 5 minutes. And that's it. And so I could teach you, how to do it. But you would need to feel comfortable how to do it. It's not hard. And then you expose it to them. And then you make sure the parents understand it and reinforce it. And they're not going to do it at this point because there's so many other things that kids can do that it's like a parent asking, it has to get done during the sport time or it won't get done. There's no time for extra.
So it's interesting. I was telling you about this book on meditation that I've been working on, trying to sell, working with my agent. It's frankly been difficult because I'm not necessarily an expert in the space, but what I have learned is you talked about the science of this. So, 30 years ago, scientists even who meditated, they came out of the hippy dippy 60s and they went overseas and they, they took acid and they did all the parties with Timothy Leary and did all the whole thing. And then they came back and they got neuroscience degrees and psychology degrees and microbiology degrees. And they were, as they say, closet meditators. Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin is the classic example. And I give a lot of credit belongs to the Dalai Lama, who, as Michael said, this stuff's been around for 2,000 years. Those monks in Tibet, they know all this. But the Dalai Lama has encouraged and interfaced with Western scientists to show what happens to our brains and what happens to our bodies when we meditate, when we do certain breathing exercises. And that has been married with this incredible advance in technology with fMRI technology. And we can really, we're in the top of the first inning, and as Michael knows, in terms of understanding how the brain works. But the point is, if you meditate for a certain amount of time, your brain will literally change in ways that will show up on an MRI. And when people understand the science of it, now it's not this hippy dippy whatever. It's like, I'm a diabetic, I need insulin. That's what happens, right? So we're just scratching the surface of this. And I do think that conversations like this help to understand people, so people understand what it is and what it isn't and how it can be applied to so many things. And that's why sports, I think, is a great window into that.
It's a great window. I'm going to make this so concrete for the viewer. So we're not just talking theory. And I want to back up 2 points. Meditation research has found that those who meditate respond better to highly stressful environments. So they perform and respond better in high context environments. That comes right out of studying special operators in the military. There's better parenting for those that are meditators. They sleep better. They're better emotional regulation. Deeper concentration focus. These are all things that come from meditation. So here would be the most simple practice for the viewer right now. If you were to set a timer for 3 minutes, we're going to do baby steps. And for those 3 minutes, all you did was focus on your inhale. Breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds. And then notice that you've got some tension in your body. And then just focus with all of your essence, all of your might on a long exhale. Maybe it's 10 seconds. And you just have a nice long exhale. And your mind's going to wander. Am I doing it right? No problems. Just come back with all of your might to focus on your inhale. And if you did that for 3 minutes, you are meditating. And if your mind wandered 500 times during those 3 minutes, it's normal. You just gently refocus back to the one thing. There would be a hard-pressed argument to say that, yeah, refocusing, that's not an important skill for high performance. That's not an important skill.
Right.
Breathing and relaxing, that's not an important skill. Be hard-pressed. Start with 3 minutes, go to 4, go to 5, move it up to 6. You're on the right path.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alex, give us a little bit of your backstory, your journey, how you founded the company, and more importantly, really, why did you feel like there was such a place in the market for this service?
So I actually started my career as a college football coach, went and coached at a Division I university, worked for a couple NFL teams, and burnt out myself coaching. Greg, as you know, it's a grind. Like the NFL season is tough. Coaches have a pretty intensive lifestyle. And what I found that I loved while I was doing that work was really spending time with players, addressing the things that they were thinking about off the field. So when I was in college, it was things like, what major should I pick, or how do I navigate my career after football? And I wanted to find an opportunity where I could do a little bit more of that work. And so I actually ended up going back to school and getting my PhD in counseling psychology. And so myself and a team of other performance psychologists got together and started to think about, how do we take what we do at the highest levels of sport and bring that earlier to an infrastructure, an ecosystem that doesn't otherwise have access to people like me. And we thought youth sport would be a great opportunity. We're hoping that we can teach these skills to young athletes through one-on-one coaching services and give them an opportunity to become their best when it matters most at school, in sports, and ultimately for their life.
Alex, I can't thank you enough. This conversation needs to be had. We need to have more conversations around this. I look forward to connecting with you. Thanks for joining us here on You Think.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It was a pleasure.
Here at You Think, we want to bring value to you, the parents, coaches, and the athletes listening in everything that we do. Check out MaxU today and let them know that You Think sent you. Now, back to the episode. You brought up like John Wooden and Phil Jackson. What do you think allowed them to be so, especially with John Wooden, you're talking, what do you think allowed those guys to be so ahead of the time on a lot of these practices that I'd be curious what you know about like their, obviously he wrote his biography, so you should probably know
right. And I
concrete, like what was his introduction? Like, and I guess my other question is, did he get a lot of resistance from his players? I had to imagine that because it was so contrary to traditional norms at the time, especially in high-level competitive basketball, people probably looked at him like he was nuts.
Well, of course, the great ones are all nuts, right? That's why we love them.
Wait, Seth. Yeah, that statement is so true. There's something so important about what you just said. I think the greats across multiple disciplines are speaking the same language. They understand a language that's different than the 99%. And so you're right on the money there. And when the wild ones are onto something, they commit to it. And then we go, oh, well, they're kind of wild and they're committed. And then you get some, like if you would have said to to your college team, if you were the best in the college or like you were in the pros, and if you were said, hey, listen, guys, in this room, in the tight end room, we're meditating. And the boys are like, oh God, are you kidding? But you're the one that's carrying the team for receptions and Some of them will be like, okay, so we need some air cover, and they need to really commit. The crazy ones, the wild ones, the frontier pushing ones, they have a different language.
Yeah, no, but it's also about communication. Like the most important quality in a leader, I think, is communication, because cool. You have to make this accessible to your players.
Right.
So I've obviously wrote a book about Wooden. I know Phil well. I've written about him at length and talked with him about this stuff at length. A little bit two different journeys. Wooden wasn't into meditation per se. Bill Walton was, and he was teaching all his guys TM, and they all thought that was nuts. There's a lot of stories there. Wooden would meditate in. I once said to Walton, I heard that Wooden told you it was okay to smoke marijuana? That's not true. I said, well, people said it was true. He said, people also said Richard Nixon was a good president, God rest his soul.
Legend.
But, yes. So John Wooden wasn't into meditation, but he had them tie their shoes and socks a certain way. That's a meditative practice. And he distinctly never talked about winning. He never used the word win. And people have tried to make him holier than thou. Oh, it wasn't, winning wasn't important. I said, yes, it was. That's how he got his, because like you were talking about the results. And if he could get his guys to not focus on the results, make each day your masterpiece, was his pet saying, that if he could keep them in the moment, focused on the process, he would tell them, when that game starts, don't look over at me. He was an English teacher. I'm your teacher. I've prepared you in practice. They didn't have a playbook. He taught them how to play. Once the game started, don't look over me. You guys play. That's why he just yelled at the refs the whole game. A lot of people don't know that about him. Phil Jackson came to meditation. He was a child of the 60s. A lot of this is kind of a faith-based journey. John Wooden was a Christian. Phil Jackson's parents were Episcopal ministers. He grew up in sort of no money around and in these churches and living a life of service. There's a great story that I often tell. Obviously, Phil has told it. He kind of came to this as a baseball pitcher. He was pitching in college and sort of taking psychology. He thought he was going to become a minister, and he had an arm injury. He had a shoulder, so he was coming back from an injury. And his brother was older brother who was kind of into this mindfulness stuff a little bit. And so his first game back from that injury, he was worried about hurting himself again. So he couldn't throw quite as hard. So he kind of went in there, how am I going to pitch this game without throwing as hard? Best game he ever pitched. And that kind of set the mindset of, George Mumford said to Kobe, well, the key to scoring is trying not to score. I said, what? If you want to score a lot of points, don't try to score. What? That's the whole ball game. Stay in the moment. So yeah, it's peace of mind, it's mental health, but it's also performance.
There are phases. Teach the kids how to train first. So fundamentals, then you teach the kids how to train. Then you teach them how to compete. And then the last phase is you teach them how to go out there and do their very best under hard conditions. But right now, what we're talking about youth sport is teach them how to train, teach them how to compete. And if that begins the focus, for the rest of their life, they're going to be well suited. So look, I want to thank you guys. Seth, what a wealth of knowledge. Really fun to be able to hang out with you.
Starstruck, the two of you. I don't know where to look.
Greg knows what he's talking about. The power that you come into the conversations with are awesome. Thank you both.
Thanks, awesome. Guys. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I just wanted to wrap up with some key takeaways from our conversation with Seth Davis, just working on improving mental fitness, especially in young athletes. First off, Seth, he shared just mastering the basics, something as simple as breathing. It can make all the difference, especially in these high pressure moments. Learning to control your breath isn't just about staying calm. It's really about creating like a mental anchor that athletes can rely on. When the game gets the most intense, you remain calm. It's really just a simple tool, but it's one that can really shift the focus back to what matters in the heat of the moment. I thought Seth also did a really good job highlighting the importance of learning how to manage your emotions. I think we all, whether it's the coaches, the parents in the crowd, the players on the field or the court, managing emotions, especially in high stressful situations, it can be a challenge for a lot of people. Emotions are very powerful, and they can push us forward, or in a lot of times they can get us off track. So learning to stay level-headed, especially when things don't necessarily go as planned, is another key part of mental fitness. It's about teaching these young athletes how they respond. Can they respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting impulsively? And I think that's a skill that's going to serve them both on and off the field. And finally, we discussed preparation for big moments. The best athletes, they don't just show up. They're mentally rehearsing and preparing for these moments leading up to competition. So that's why when the moments do pop up, they're ready. It doesn't catch them off guard. It's not something they're trying to adjust to in real time. Visualization, self-talk, setting clear intentions, those are just some tools that athletes can use to build the confidence and approach big moments with a purpose. I think today's episode reminds us that mental fitness is just as critical as the physical training. By learning to breathe, managing emotions, and mentally preparing for these big moments, young athletes can gain a powerful edge over their peers. Here's to building resilience, one practice at a time. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time here on You Think.